Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to presentation on overcoming challenges for both clients and candidates. So I know we're penultimate session of the day, so I hope you've enjoyed your day so far. So what we'll be focusing on today is multiple different areas. Is looking at what the current market situation is and how on the client side, when hiring, and on the candidate side, looking for a job, you can overcome those challenges that present in the market and really standing out. So start off just a little bit of an introduction, just kind of tell you about me and about Shirley Parsons. So some of you may know me. I've been at Shirley Parsons now for 14 years now, so quite a long time. I joined as a graduate with no experience in this sector in recruitment or health and safety, and have built my way up to be a UK lead of careers. So when I say careers, that is permanent long-term hires. So I specialise on the permanent side. I also focus predominantly within infrastructure, construction, civil engineering as a sector. So that is where my candidate network really is. But managing the whole of UK careers, I lead a team that specialise across multiple different disciplines. You name a discipline, there's someone with my team that will do that. So facilities, manufacturing, retail, consultancy, etc. I'm actually also, I have an NEBOSH Construction and I'm NCRQ diploma level qualified. So the reason for that is that enables me to not only be a specialist on the recruitment side, but actually have a strong understanding towards health and safety, which is the area that I specialise within. So that's a little bit about me, Shirley Parsons. So some of you, most of you, I hope, would know who Shirley Parsons are. So we were founded in 2005. So been going for nearly 20 years now. Founded by Shirley herself, who's a chartered practitioner of IOSH. She came from a sustainability background. And really, we've grown from strength to strength as a business. So we started off in Aylesbury, so just in Buckinghamshire, which is where I'm based. But we've grown to now have three offices in the US, one in Canada, one in Netherlands, one in Germany, one in Australia, New Zealand, Taiwan, and further growth across the globe. As you can see there, that we have supported across 38 countries and 5 continents with projects. So we've anything from Uruguay to South Africa. We've supported companies there within HSEQ, and also just to make you aware, is we work at all levels. So we'll work with candidates from entry level graduates all the way up to global directors. So we really support across the whole wide business within HSEQ. So that was just a little bit of information about me and Shirley Parsons. As I say, some of you may be aware, but that's just to kind of give you the idea of the credibility that we have within the sector. We're one of the leading industry specialists, and we only specialise in HSEQ and sustainability, so a real niche sector. So I just thought I'd put an agenda. I briefly mentioned this on the first slide, is that really it's not too much to go through, but there's quite a bit of content and interesting content. Is we're going to start with market insights. So in March every year, and actually it was April this year, so a little later than usual, is we release our market insight survey, which covers anything and everything from salary to motivation to D&I to gender pay gap to you name it within HSEQ. We run a report every year, and that report is free and available on our website. At the end of the slide deck, there is a link to our website. If you go to that and go to Insights, you can download the full report, which gives you all the information. But during this presentation, I'll be going through actually some key areas and how that relates to challenges and what you can do to overcome those challenges. And then, as I say, we go on to the challenges and focusing on candidates and clients and what we're seeing in the market and how changing and adapting can actually support better decisions and finding those right opportunities and standing out. So we'll start going into insights first. And if you have any questions or anything you want to discuss, please feel free to put it in the chat, and either it can be sent to me to answer, or maybe someone in the chat has experienced that and can give some of their experiences. Don't be afraid to fill up that chat with content whilst I'm talking. So the first slide I'm going to talk about is when do you anticipate looking for a new position? So this is quite an interesting one, and it's actually one that has significantly changed how people look for their next position. And I think that is down to the rise of tools such as LinkedIn, social media, and how the market is approached. That if you look a couple of years ago, 2022, is that nearly 60% of the market was actively searching. And I think that was probably off the back of what we experienced in 2020 with COVID, and people were actively in the market applying, and only 14% now are open to that approach of applying for positions. So what we're seeing is that people aren't actively out there searching for their next position, actively applying, engaging with job adverts, engaging with clients who are hiring. So it's really changed how us as an industry and candidates in how they actually approach the market. So you can see now, big spike is actually people are open to hearing. So people are settled. So you can see that it's pretty steady around 25%, always quite happy, not interested. Whereas what we've seen is a huge change in people wanting to move and open to move. And now people are open. So everything becomes a search exercise. And a lot of what I'm going to be talking about today from both the client and candidate side is going to be about a proactive approach. Is that with the market being very much a candidate-driven market, and the majority, over 60% of candidates, are there, open to hearing and open to moving, it then becomes we've got to go out and find that talent. No longer can we sit back, put out an advert and say, do you know what, I'm going to get the perfect applications for those. Obviously, applications are still great, and there are good opportunities for people that are in the market looking. That at the moment, you'd see about 14% of the market will apply. So that'll mean that you're getting a small segment from those applications, and actually there's a big world out there to go out and proactively look at. So that's a big change. And as I say, I think that's really down to LinkedIn, that LinkedIn being the now where I think across all sectors, I think you're looking at about 85 to 90% found their next position through LinkedIn. So I think that LinkedIn being almost an online CV that is always there for anyone to have access to at any point to engage and reach out to. So that's a real change in how you're seeing them. And from your perspective is from a client, hiring manager, you'll probably see that decline in applications, or maybe even decline in quality applications as well. So that was a big shift change, and that will become quite apparent when we talk about how candidates and clients can use this information to really ensure they're getting the best talent and new opportunity. Salaries. So salaries is always a motivator. Cost of living is increased, and what we're seeing is that salaries in the last 2 years have increased across all levels of position. You're looking at around 10K advisor consultant, a manager around a 10, 11K, head of department around 16K, and then the directors remain quite steady, and we haven't seen as bigger increases. But what we have seen is considerable increase in salary over the last 2 years, and yeah, that's down to cost of living, that's down to the shortage of talent. So yeah, we can see that on the right is actually it talks about the average salary per sector, and we can see that oil and gas, mining, traditionally has always been a very high paying, high risk. But what we have seen is a real high shoot in pharmaceutical and biotechnology, really down to, I think, the spike of what we've seen in COVID in the amount that the need has become. And then you've got renewable energy again is very, very high. But what you see in this slide is this is the salaries on average that people are paid. So there are people that are on higher, there are people on lower. So what you could almost say is this is roughly around the market rate as an overall. So what you'll see is if you download our wider market insights is that it does provide a breakdown per sector, per level of position, because what you'll see is education is overall paid the lowest out of all of our sectors, which will traditionally mean that a head of department will be paid probably lower in education than they will oil and gas. But what that allows you to do is if you go onto there and download our insights, is it will enable you to really look at it and go, well, how does this look for me? What is the impact on me in the market change? And this is the overall market rate, I would say. But I would say market rate is a dangerous word, and I always say that is because if you're looking for someone at market rate, our insights have shown that the average candidate is looking for a 17% increase. That's 17% increase to consider a new position. So if someone's on 50K, that means they're looking at around the 57, 58 to consider a move. So if you're looking at someone at around the manager level and you're saying, oh, we're saying 60K, I'm going to pay 60K. Actually, if you're looking to get someone who's at that level currently, you're probably looking to have to pay above that rate around the 66 to 68K to secure someone to really to get someone to be interested, because if you really, people are looking at that 17% increase. So there's a little bit on salary, and obviously salary is a very, very key thing. But one thing that's really changed about salary is its location, because I always get asked is, what is the average salary? And you can see there, it's very, very clear of what's the average salary. But actually what changes is the location, the type of business, the industry, etc., etc. So it's really hard to break it down and say that is the market rate. But what you can see here is London, South East traditionally are the highest paying, but over the last 12 months, we've seen a significant increase in the Midlands, and Midlands salary has actually gone above the average salary of London. We believe that's down to the amount of work happening in the Midlands at the moment with HS2, but what also we're experiencing there is a shortage of talent to complete the work, and also the drive to secure the best talent. So we have seen a spike in salaries in the Midlands. But what that does relate is, this is a little bit of an easier slide to see, is that it shows where in the UK the average salary compares. So you can see that in the Northwest, the average salary is 12% lower than in London and other areas. What that does show is that we've seen a spike in remote working over the last 3 to 4 years, which means that we're seeing a lot of people who employed London but actually are based in other areas. So we should see that salary pay gap within regions close up the more the companies embrace working from home and hybrid working. But there is a flip side to that we are starting to see more businesses now go back to a traditional set in the office or working on site model. So this gives you an idea, and this is really important, because when we talk about market rates and salaries, if you're a candidate or a client looking at that overall market rate, it's not relative to a location, whereas this gives you a bit of better idea. So if I look back, is that this just gives an overall of all positions within those regions. In our full insights, it really does break down into location. So if you're an advisor in the Northwest, you'll be able to see what the market rate is. So whether you're hiring or looking for a position, you'll understand your value and really where the market is. So this is part of what we're going to get into later with the challenges. Is really understanding what the climate and the market rate is within your region, so you're not either pricing yourself out of a move or you're not undervaluing yourself. So there's a little bit of information there. I don't think it will come as a surprise. I think the only real surprise that people have seen is the increase in the Midland salaries in comparison to other areas. But I think when we explain HS2 and a lot of other large projects and businesses move into Birmingham, it makes sense. And also, you've traditionally got a lot of people who are Midland-centric that traditionally have worked in London and have to travel in 5 days a week, who are now remote, who have been able to move a bit further out. So just a little bit of information there on those salaries. Obviously, salary is a key driver, but what I wanted to talk about now is just a little bit around satisfaction and what that actually means. Because in companies is that you could say, oh, I'm looking for someone at a so-and-so salary, or if someone's in a business and they're paid a salary. But actually, it's cheaper to retain talent than it is to hire talent. The cost of hiring, the cost of advertising, the time it takes, all of those things come into play. Excuse me. So what it's actually looking at here on this slide is, when does satisfaction dip? And overall, you can see actually satisfaction has increased year on year. And I think that's because companies are starting to look at what motivates their employees. So, but what you can see is actually traditionally between the 3 to 5 years is when satisfaction in a business dips and people are looking for their next opportunity. When someone starts a job, traditionally motivations and satisfaction is very, very high. You're new, you're exploring, you're discovering, you're motivated to make those changes. Actually, when you get to around the 3 to 5 years is when you've been at a business and you start to ask yourself, what's next? What does that look like? Is that here? Is that elsewhere? You start to realize maybe you aren't able to make the changes. Maybe the progression isn't there. Maybe the person above you has no intention of leaving or retiring. So you look at that and you say, well, actually, that's the next logical position. That's not going to be available for a long time, so I need to look elsewhere. So this is really important for businesses to understand, is when satisfaction dips and how you can ensure that when that dip happens, or you prevent the dip, you're able to then pick it back up. But identifying that, because actually you really only find out satisfaction is low traditionally when someone hands in the notice. So this is a breakdown of key factors around satisfaction. So you can see that actually a key area of satisfaction usually would be people wanting that base salary, whereas actually you can see that flexible working is now the area where people are wanting the most satisfaction. So you can see that is the highest level of people are somewhat satisfied to very satisfied, and that's basically down to the work from home, the flexibility, which companies now are embracing more, but also understanding that it is part of the market. It's part of what drives and motivates people. So looking at that, and you can see actually job responsibilities, line manager, base salary, they're the key drivers. But if you look at the very bottom, is the areas where people are less satisfied, long-term incentives. So that's share options, long-term bonuses. Once you've got bonuses, progression. They're the key areas that people are going, well, actually, this is an area that my company aren't focusing on. And they're the areas that I think if you said every time in the market is everyone's looking for flexible working and that opportunity to have a better work-life balance. And you don't need to be in an office 24/7 to be able to complete your work. If you're doing documentation, all those things, it can be done at home if you have a suitable working space. So companies know that, but what companies aren't looking at is the long-term incentives for employees, and that's the progression, that's long-term bonus incentives, is that long-term reward, is that not that here and now, well done, here's a reward. It's like, where are we going to be in that long term? And that's, again, you're looking at 3 to 5 years is where those satisfactions really start to dip, because they either don't see the progression, they aren't getting the bonus, there's no long-term incentives. That's where they start to look elsewhere and see what other opportunities will arise. But again, it's 5 years ago, the main driver for change was base salary. Now the main driver for change is flexibility, flexible working, relationships, responsibilities. Salary is still, of course, a key area, but it's now not the main driver. And again, I say it's not the main driver. That's really important, because as we get towards the candidate and client challenges, is that's a key thing, is understand your motivations. Is why are you open to looking? What is it that you are looking for? Because very quickly people get sidetracked by money. And this is why we talk about counter offers, is that if you're looking to move, and the reason you're looking to move is there's no progression, there's a poor safety culture, and you don't get on with your hiring manager, your direct line manager. If someone then says, oh, we're going to pay you 10K to stay, you may go, oh, 10K, do you know what? I could put up with those for an extra 10K. Usually what happens is within 12 months, 90% of people who accept a counter offer leave anyway. And the reason being is that they've been sidetracked and they've not looked at the reason why they've stayed. They wanted to move. Their line manager's still there and they don't have a relationship. There's still a poor safety culture. They can't impact change. And there still is no room for progression. So even when the money is there still is a high chance that a lot of the other motivators don't exist and won't change. So always bear that in mind. And employers look at that as well, is that if you're having to counter offer someone, actually, rather than offering a counter offer, understand why they're looking to change. But again, we'll talk about that more in the challenges. So as you can see, there's a lot of areas where some people are somewhat satisfied and satisfied. As you can see, there is no area where everyone is 100% satisfied. So there's always room for development, but this is where it's understanding people and yourself as to where you sit on this scale and what you are happy with and you're not happy with. So that was kind of a real whistle-stop tour of kind of our insights. Sorry, our insights go into a lot more detail and have a lot more to go through. And I could sit here and go through our insights, and I could talk through them for a good hour and a half as to each area. But actually, I think if you go onto our website, you have a real good understanding of what's there and really are able to relate it to you. And that's the key thing, is that with our insights, is that it gives the overall, But actually, with our wider insights, is it allows you to really nail it down and go, do you know what? I've got 5 years experience. I'm based in Manchester. I work in utilities. I'm an advisor. What is it I'm looking for? And it shows you what you should be on and where you should be going. And that will really enable not only you, but obviously a business to really understand and to come together and go, this is market information, accurate information that we gather every year. We're in the process of getting our 2025 data now. That starts in November, and that goes on till March, and then it gets released again. So the data that I'm showing you was released in April 2024. So you could argue that it is already out of date. It is already, the market is already moving, and there's obviously lots of changes that continuously happen in the market, which have an impact in the insights. So I'm going to talk about some candidate challenges now, and give some hints and tips as to how to overcome those challenges from an applying perspective, and how to secure your next job, and key areas that you should consider when doing that. And also from a recruitment perspective, is things to avoid that can alienate yourself or not put you in the shop window. So I've put them all out here, and I'll talk through one by one and give you some information. Some of them you'll be fully aware of and you will get. Some of them you may not be, and gone, actually, I hadn't thought of that. But first is I've put LinkedIn profile. So LinkedIn, and if we go back to one of the earlier slides where we spoke about how candidates are looking, is just over 60% of candidates now are open but not actively looking. And that is generally down to LinkedIn and how it works. That for me is that we have our active network, we have our database, but LinkedIn's a very key tool. I will go out and approach the market to people who are open to work or have been actively looking. So what I mean by that is that, excuse me, on your profile, you can have the green banner that says open to work. That's very obvious, that's very apparent. You can also change your setting to be open to work, which means that anyone who has the recruiter platform can, or a hiring manager can basically identify you to say, oh, they're open to discussions. So it's really important for your LinkedIn profile to stand out and have regular updates and accurate information, because if it's an online CV, that sometimes when we speak to candidates who haven't had a excuse me, haven't had a CV completed for a number of years, is they go away and update it. But LinkedIn actually gives you the ability where you can update that every single day on a regular basis. So it allows you to be approached. And that's where the 60% of people who are open to hearing is, my LinkedIn profile's here. If you think I'm good for a position, hey, drop me a message. It could be something I'm open to. And actually, that's how a lot of success is coming from our perspective, alongside hiring managers, less so than actually applications. So really important, LinkedIn. I think that is the tool at the moment. If you want to secure your next position, that is the area that you want to really focus your time on. If you are open, if you're actively looking, it's very important. But there's other things you can do, and we'll talk about those. So can't stress it enough. LinkedIn. But application process, proactive. So a lot of people who are actively looking or are just open will see a job and they'll go apply. And if you're using LinkedIn or Indeed or any of those, they often tell you how many people have applied. And you'll see in the corner, 500 people have applied. So when you click apply, you get a list of applications. You go in at 501, which means that how are you going to stand out? How are you going to move yourself up the list? Because people will work through. And if they work through the first 100 and they identify 5 people that are strong, it's very, very unlikely you are going to get approached. And I can honestly say, looking for a job is very, very hard. We've all been there. We've all done it. And it is demoralizing a lot of the time that you believe yourself to be great for an opportunity. You put yourself out there. You put your CV across. You apply through LinkedIn, and then you never hear anything again. You may get a rejection email. What you need to do is be more proactive. If I use LinkedIn for an example, is that LinkedIn, often when you apply for a job, it has a banner underneath with a picture of the person who's advertising. That may be an HR person, internal recruiter, myself from an external agency, the hiring manager directly. Drop them a line, drop them a message, just follow up and say, I've just sent my CV across, here's it again, either over email or through LinkedIn InMail. But you've got to put yourself in front of the window, because if you're applying, you're number 501, unless you're doing something to get yourself in a different form, a different way, you're not going to stand out. But that only comes through being proactive. Some of the best candidates that we place may apply for a job or may not even apply. But the first thing they do is they pick up the phone and they call and they said, I saw this advertised, I've applied. Could I talk to someone about it? It means that they've moved themselves up the list. They've moved themselves from number 501 to inside the top 10 because they've had that conversation. It may be that the opportunity is not right. It's not right for both parties, but at least you know. Whereas actually it could be the perfect opportunity and you get yourself moved up very, very quickly. So just bear that in mind, is don't just click send and just sit back and wait for the interviews to roll in. It's a competitive market, and it's whilst it is a candidate-driven market, which means there are more opportunities than actively looking and available candidates, is that there is still candidates open to positions. So there is always competition for every position. So yeah, you've got to make sure you're putting yourself out there and being proactive. I put manage your expectations. So this is very much focused on yourself. So just because a position's advertising 50 to 60 doesn't mean that you should be paid between 50 and 60. And whilst that's the banding, what I mean by that is that if you are a candidate that is on 48 and you're wanting 52, 53, there's no harm in applying for a position and being at 52, 53. If you're instantly putting yourself at the top level, whilst it's great to have large salary increases, it does put you in a different level. So I think use the market insights and really know what you need to make something work. That be realistic with yourself is, what level do you believe yourself to be at? How can you put yourself in front of this hiring manager? What is the right level for you? And traditionally, candidates want the highest pay, clients want to pay the lowest pay and develop people to the highest pay. So it's looking at that realistically, is where do I sit and what do I need and how can I engage with this client? So just manage your own expectations on that. Understand your motivation. So again, we spoke about this in the motivations, and we spoke about counter offers, and we spoke about salary and people getting their head turned by salary. Is a really good example I had a number of years ago. Is I had a candidate who wanted to move because they're on the road 5 days a week. They were getting home at 10 o'clock at night, and they wanted to be home to put their son to bed every night. Or most nights. They appreciate they may not have got that, but we found them a position that offered that. They were counter offered, and actually they were considering accepting the counter offer. It was about a 10k increase, so probably about a I think the person was on around 50 to 60 at the time, so it was a good increase. And obviously that was important. Cost of living is really important. But actually speaking to the candidate, it went back to the motivations, and we said, well, remember why you were looking to move is that yes, you may be getting more money, but you're still not going to be able to do what you want to do. The travel, is it going to change? And the answer was unlikely. So it's really looking at, why do I want to move, and really sticking to that, because you can get very quickly sidetracked by either a salary or a bonus or a promise, and looking at actually, why do I want to move, and really being clear on that, and then making sure you apply around those. So if you're saying you don't want to travel, don't apply or put yourself in the mix for positions that require national travel on a regular basis. It's only gonna, at the end, work out the same. So really understand your motivations and why are you looking. Focus your approach. So I just mean, don't scattergun. So we advertise a lot of positions, and I can honestly say, if a candidate applies for everything, if I've got 3 or 4 things very similar in a very similar location, if they apply for all those, absolutely fine, because it's a focused approach. But I've had candidates who at times will have 100 adverts on our website, and they'll apply for every single one. It actually gives quite a negative towards that person, because they go, well, they're applying for things at 30k, they're applying for things at 100k, whilst they're obviously open, is that it shows that there's not that focused approach in really what are they wanting, what are they looking for. If someone's based in Reading and applying for things within 30 miles of Reading, and they're on 60k and they're applying for things from 60 to 70, and they apply for all of those, you go, I get that. It's a focused approach. Understand what you're wanting and really focus an approach on that, because it can come across as a negative if you are applying for anything and everything. But yeah, I just think it's focus your approach, that you're not applying for anything and everything, actually looking at what suits you. And from a candidate perspective, is a lot of people don't think about it. A lot of people look at how they're feeling now and what they want now. Not a lot of people look at where do I want to get to, because moving job is one of the 4 or 5 hardest things you can do in life, and it's move house, it's get married, have kids, and start a new job. With that in mind, is anytime you make a decision, you should be looking at what's the long term, what's the overall goal, and relate that back to your motivations. If you're looking at progression, when you're looking for a position or joining a new company, understand what that progression plan is. Who is that replacing? What is the growth plans? Really knowing where you want to be short, mid, and long term, because what you don't want to do is get to that 3 to 5 year satisfaction level where it dips and you look again, because I think change is good. I generally do, and I think it's changed a lot since COVID, where people traditionally would be in a position for 10, 15 years, then move, and now you're looking at the average retention rate is around 2.5 years. So I think change is good to develop, progress yourself. But I think knowing where you are and where you want to get to, I think is a really important part, because what we see quite a lot is people will move because they go, I'm not paid what I should be. I'm not doing this. They go to a business that's doing that, and then they realize actually motivations long term they didn't think about. When you move house, traditionally you move house to either upsize because you need more space or downsize because you need less. But people usually traditionally, when they move, they're looking at the future. They're thinking, oh, we're going to start a family, we're going to need an extra room. They don't ever buy a house for the now. Some do, but you don't traditionally buy a house for the now. You buy a house for in the future, what you're going to need. Same with a job, is don't just move jobs for the now. Look at where you are and where you want to be. So that's really important, because that will also enable you to ask better questions during an interviewing process to understand if it's the right long-term position for you. So that's the candidate side. It's just, again, a real hints and tips of the things that you can do to stand out. But I think it's all related around making yourself noticeable, which is LinkedIn, being proactive, understanding what you want, mid, short, and long term, and then how you go about that. And that's the proactive approach. That's the focused approach. So, yeah, that's just some tips for the candidate side. As I say, in the chat, write any experiences you may have, and please feel free to respond to those people if you've had those experiences. I'm going to talk about the clients now in overcoming challenges when hiring. So, from a candidate perspective, there's a lot of opportunities out there. And really, how do you kind of get yourself in front of other people? Whereas on the client side, is again, there's a lot of opportunities out there. We're seeing on average that when a candidate is in process, traditionally they're in the process for 2 to 3 other opportunities. So in a client-driven market where there's shortage of candidates, a shortage of candidates, it basically flips. There's shortage of jobs, more candidates. It means they have a better, wider pool to fit. So actually they have more power. But what we're seeing at the moment is that with the market insights, is clients need to really understand what the market's doing and if their salary and package is comparable and competitive. And when I say package, that has become just as important as salary. So package includes anything that's a bonus, medical, flexible working, compounded hours, whatever it may be, that is becoming as important as a base salary nowadays. That a lot of people kind of see the base as a base and they'll pay what's required. But actually, what's those additional perks? What are the holidays? I'm working with a client at the moment that compounds their hours. So if you do them all in 4 days, you can have every Friday off. That works for people's flexibility, mental health, etc. That then becomes quite appealing, as opposed to another company I'm working with, which is a base salary and no travel, no package, no healthcare, no nothing. It then becomes a challenge, because you're looking at, well, if I'm competing in the market, what is the market doing, not only on salary but on package? How do I attract people? And I'm going to skip a few and go on to selling the opportunity. And that's really key. Is, as I say, in a candidate-driven market where a candidate will have 3 or 4 other opportunities, is why your business? Why are they joining you? An interview is very much a two-way street. Is that it is a candidate now is as much interviewing the client as the client is the candidate, because you can't put square pegs in round holes. You need to really look at what is that key sell, like why your business? I've got 2 other businesses giving me a sell as well. If you're not making that compelling reason why, but again, let's look at that. Let's filter that back. Is that you need to understand what the market's motivations are, and also there's no harm asking why are they interested in the position, what is their key drivers for their next employment, and then playing on that. So I've put understand the market motivations. Is there is a wider agenda that candidates traditionally want flexible working from home, but actually that's not the case for everyone. Some people enjoy being in an office, some people enjoy traveling, whatever it may be. But you've really got to understand why that person, and then basically sell the position around those motivations. So if a candidate comes and says, "Oh, my main motivator to leave is I want that flexibility working from home," if the first thing you say is that office 5 days a week, 9 till 5, no flexibility, that candidate's going to be instantly turned off. Some is that is the case, and that's just being honest. But ultimately, as well, is that if there is, it's understanding, and then if there is areas of flexibility, then talking about those, really selling those as an opportunity. Proactive approach. So again, candidates need to be proactive. So do clients. Is that we looked at, if you just put an advert out there, 14% of the market are applying, which means 86% of the market aren't interested, aren't seeing your jobs. You may get some of the open people applying, but traditionally open people are open to being approached, but not actively applying. So that means that whilst there could be some great talent in that 14%, you could be missing out on even better talent in that 86%. But that becomes a proactive approach, and not all businesses have that ability to have that proactive approach, but everyone knows how expensive it is to hire the wrong person. There's statistics out there, it's in the tens, hundreds of thousands. So that's where actually looking at what is the best approach. And some businesses will be, we'll do it ourselves. Some businesses will say, oh, we'll use a specialist agency. Really, it's looking at that again, that long-term planning. And I've put there long-term retention planning is that if you hire right first time and understand their motivations, you can build a plan around how you can secure them for longer. So we said 3 to 5 years is that dip in satisfaction when people traditionally look to leave. If you understand someone's looking for progression, then absolutely when they get to that point, you've already got a plan in place that shows where that progression is going. So you mitigate those people wanting to leave to go somewhere to get what they need, and that satisfaction remains high. But you can only do that through understanding motivations and having a proactive approach to the market. So look at how you're going out there. And then finally, speed as well. Some companies move very quickly. Some companies move very slow. What you'll see is that traditionally the companies who move fast to secure talent will secure the better talent, because sitting on my side, I'll work with a candidate who I'll have in the mix for 2 or 3 opportunities traditionally. And then what will happen is the client that moves the fastest traditionally will have the first opportunity to secure the candidate, of course. Some companies will take 2 to 3 months to complete an interview process, and when they get to offer, they're saying, oh, I'd like to offer that candidate. I'm sorry, they've secured another opportunity. So speed is an important thing. So if you are serious about hiring, you need to make sure you're blocking out time to put time into that hiring and looking at how you can save time. And that may be partnering with an agent, whatever it may be, is looking at how can I make sure this process goes as fast and as seamless as possible to get the opportunity to secure the right talent. Speed alone won't secure talent, but understanding motivations, selling the opportunity around that, having long-term planning, and making sure that the salary and package, the region, the candidate, the market rate is all relative. That means that people are of interest. So really got to look at that as an important. It is a two-way interview process, and there's nothing worse than finding someone you love. You go through the whole interview process, you get to the offer, and they accept something else. Back to square one, and everyone then is compared to that person. Whereas actually, if you're doing all these throughout every process, you will secure that talent over your competitors. I just put this here because we've spoke about a lot about proactiveness from both sides in the market currently, and it's a quote by Walt Disney: "Is the way to get started is to quit talking and start doing." A lot of people will talk about I'm going to do this or I want to do this. Is actually it's just about the doing. So, for example, I said about the client side is block out time. As soon as you're looking to hire, block out time so you can get those interviews in. Oh, I intend to. But meetings get in the way. Actually, no, this is just as important. So looking to make sure you block out that time early. So just do it. And then candidate side is, oh yeah, do you know what? I'm going to apply for that job and then I'm going to follow up after. A lot of the time that follow up never happens. So just do it there and then. Just get it done. move on. But make sure, just stop talking and start acting, I would say, is really important in the current market conditions. Uh, and yeah, like just a summary is that little things to look at is, I've mentioned it a lot. So candidates is look at what the main motivators to change. Make yourself, spell an error there, it's yours. Make yourself visible and open to change. So that is through LinkedIn, as I say, is you can do all proactive engagement tools, which means you can be spotted a lot easier and you stand out. Engage with employees. So I said, go out, be proactive, and be clear on your growth and where you want to be in the future. I think that's really important. Is you, as I said, I relate it to the house. You don't buy a house for now. Traditionally, you buy a house for what you'll need or what you can do, the potential. It's the same when you get an employment, and that will mean you'll retain a position for longer. Clients, go out and find the talent. If you don't have the resources, who does? And I put that there, a bit of selfless promoting ourselves is with our database of over 90,000 candidates across the UK. We do have the ability to do an outreach campaign, which companies won't be able to do themselves or have the time. So we have that ability, and that also can save you a lot of time, get you ahead of competition, etc. You may have the resources internally. Some companies have large internal teams. Looking at how you do that, what's the process? Know your process and how you can reach talent. So that again, it's looking at how can you do it, and then actually the doing. Sell the position. I can't stress that more. Is clients need to make sure they are selling their opportunities. There's definitely a degree of honesty in setting the tone of where people are going and what challenges they're coming in. And maybe it's fighting some fires early, but you've got to sell the upside. Otherwise, you're not going to secure that talent. And future-proofing your hires, and that is really around the long-term part of the business where you're looking at, if we're hiring someone today, I don't want to have to hire them again in 3-4 years. How can I ensure that in 3 to 4 years they are retained in the business? And that's it. No, I appreciate your time and listening. As I say, I've got my email address there, so feel free to reach out directly. And there's our Shirley Parsons website. If you go on there and click Insights, you can download our full insight report. But I know this is a penultimate session. I know there's one more session to go, so I hope you all enjoy that final session. And thanks for listening. And if anyone wants to reach out to me directly, my contact details are there. Thank you for your time. Take care.